Okay, so what I want to do today is basically show and explain how I pilot my Railjack in such a way that I normally don't have to worry about it getting blown up in space. Now, keep in mind, the Catherine Gaza is not a particularly tanky ship. I don't actually use any of the tank avionics. Yet, I have absolutely no problems whatsoever with that. Now, most people seem to go for a tanky Railjack, which is perfectly fine for them. Obviously, at that point, they won't really need to rely on particularly good piloting skills, and instead they can let their Railjack carry most of that weight. However, I prefer to actually rely on my own skills, as opposed to just sitting behind a particularly meaty shield. So, let's get into it. In my opinion, there are 3 skills to master when it comes to being a great Railjack pilot. The first one is, of course, being a great team commander. The second one being an Ordinance Master. And finally, being able to master the skills of mobility with your Railjack. So, what do I mean by that? Let's start off with Team Command. Team Command basically means being very clear with your team and how you want to engage the mission, because that's really crucial for being a Railjack pilot. Essentially, you're the one who has full control over the Railjack because you are the pilot. So outside of extermination missions like Guyam Point, you want to do things like letting your team know that you're going to be dropping them off at the objective. You want to be able to give them the confidence that they can actually complete their side of the mission inside the objective without having to go outside of the objective, because you're going to be outside the objective getting ready to destroy whatever is necessary in order to complete that set objective. And if you are unable to complete your side of the objective for whatever reason, you want to be able to at least let your away team know that that is the case, and they can just sit tight and wait, or you just let them know, hey, the door, for example, to get outside the objective is pretty damn close. If you could just do that, that'd be great. Being a great commander of the Railjack is basically telling your team that this is what's going to happen, but it also includes things like letting your team know that you have avionics available that are going to be very, very useful. In particular, tactical avionics. For example, if you have Battle Forge available, be sure to let your engineer know. This is actually something that I need to improve on as well, personally. And also, don't forget to let your gunners know that you have Death Blossom and or battle stations available if you actually have those available. I don't tend to have those tactical avionics available, so I don't really need to worry about that. But generally speaking, if you do have them, best to let your gunners know so that they can use them as much as they need. Ultimately, the pilot is the glue that holds the team together, so you need to be able to instruct your team on what you need them to do throughout that mission. Generally speaking, though, it's really just about making sure you have someone tackling objectives and then someone handling the forge. As long as you can manage that inside your team, you should be fine on this regard. Now, the next part, of course, is the Ordinance Mastery. So as the pilot, you're basically going to have to act as a support for your forward artillery gunner. There are a couple of things you're going to need to do in order to actually fulfill this role. So the first thing you want to do is you want to be able to break any shield generators. So there are 2 ways of doing it. The first way that I personally prefer is to use a Tycho Seeker. It's fast and efficient, and you just lock onto a cruise ship and you're done. Whereas the other way is to actually use your guns, and you'll probably have to also instruct your gunners to also do the same by shooting at the shield generators that appear on Skald cruise ships. You also need to point the Railjack at a cruise ship, because the forward artillery gunner does not have 360-degree swivel on their forward artillery gun. You're going to have to actually point your Railjack at that cruise ship, so you're going to have to do that. And also in a similar manner, don't forget to use your pilot gun as a tool to weaken enemy cruise ships. There are a lot of the guns that are available, even right now, that are capable of weakening cruise ships to such an extent that the forward artillery gun can actually destroy them in one foul swoop. There is, of course, only one gun that doesn't do that. If you want to see more details, go and check out my Railjack weapons video. Depending on the skill and also the network lag of the forward artillery gunner, they may be able to actually fire their forward artillery and hit a cruise ship while your Railjack is actually moving around. So have a figure out as to whether or not your forward artillery gunner has that level of skill. If they do, great, that does make things a little bit easier. But if not, you'll basically want to find a spot that is suitable for the ship to be sort of left idle while they destroy that cruise ship. Which kind of brings me to the third point, which is all about that Railjack mobility. So, the hard and fast rule when it comes to being a great Railjack pilot, in my opinion, is to always be moving. Always keep that Railjack moving. As a Railjack, if it's still in space, i.e. if it's not moving at all, that's basically the fastest way to get it destroyed. So, in my opinion, movement is the absolute key to keeping your Railjack alive. So, what do I mean? You want to be moving in order to dodge fighter ship fire. You want to be moving in order to dodge cruise ship fire, but you can also block that with things like countermeasures if you actually want to use that battle bionic. And you also want to be moving to dodge things like ram sleds, objectives, the space laser coming from the ship killer platform, things like that. You want to be able to keep moving your ship away in order to keep dodging that kind of incoming fire. When your Railjack is moving, guess what? You are 84.356 repeater, of course, percent less likely to experience a breach. So that's really, really important. Having that map awareness to where your enemy key players are, i.e. high damage fighter ships and more importantly, cruise ships, this will further reduce your likelihood of getting your ship blown up in space. Cruise ship guns have a 3-kilometer range. So that's kind of why I was saying if you want to find a spot that is suitable for your ship to be left idle, you generally want to be outside of that 3-kilometer range, because once you're outside of that range, guess what? They're not going to be able to attack you. They're going to try and chase you sometimes. So keeping your ship moving by moving further away from those cruise ships, that's usually a really, really good idea. And at that point, that actually brings to a different point, which is you want to actually focus on having a forward artillery gunner who is capable of aiming their forward artillery gun a little bit further than 3 kilometers away. Remember, you have a variety of tools that are available at your disposal to keep your Railjack moving. So we're talking about things like the regular boost, we're talking about things like the boost step, we're also talking about long distance boost drifting. Don't forget to use that if you want to make some distance between, say, a cruise ship and a bunch of fighters and yourself. Don't forget to use all of that. So that's essentially it. Let your team know what's up, support your forward artillery gunner, and keep your Railjack moving. Really, really straightforward ideas, but once you master them, basically pilot any Railjack. That's basically it. So let me know what you think about all of this in the comments below. How do you pilot your Railjack? Let me know in the comments. I suspect most of us are going to be saying, well, my Railjack is very, very tanky, so I don't necessarily need to think about that. That is entirely possible, and that's up to you if you want to do that, but I feel like really, really good piloting skills are just going to be far more valuable in the long run, as opposed to just trying to hide behind essentially a really gigantic tank. Otherwise, hope you guys enjoyed this. If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more WarFrame content, and until next time, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye!